We are live.
Thank you. Calling it to order. We have a quorum. Thank you, everyone, for being here and for your patience. I would like to look at the March 14th meeting minutes and ask for approval. It was provided in the package that we
Moved.
second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, the motion carries. I'd like to review and approve the March 2025 financials, with the highlights of which have been included, along with statement of activity and financial position, cash flows, etc. Deanne, would you like to take us through it, or Jim? Deanne, it is.
Certainly. The fund balance is $1,050,000. Cash equivalents and T-bills are $270,000. You might notice on the balance sheet that I have moved them now because I was always having to separate them out of the cash. So I moved them into their own category as investments. All of those, no T-bills are left. All of those are in a money market account. The money market account is slightly over the FDIC insured amount. So we contacted Adirondack Trust to see if we can move 150 over there.
Is that a rate? I know you want to split it up.
I think it's not necessarily about the rate, it's about the relationship.
And we're at MBT
If we wanted
right
the
now.
best rate, we'd be going online, actually. What was that?
And we're at MBT right now.
Yeah, so we have accounts with NBT, we have accounts with Arrow,
Arrow.
Motion just the broadband.
Of course.
and the LDC has accounts with T. Cash is good, it's 250,000. Accounts receivable is close to what our cash is 226. So 114 is Town of Queensbury, that contract has been signed.
And you need the check here?
No, he says that he will bring it before his board in, I think it might be tonight.
It wasn't already approved.
He told me they have the check done. Okay.
What about the city contract? Did that get signed? Did
Yes,
the city
the contract has been signed and the resolution has been passed.
Okay.
Did the city contract get signed too?
I have not gotten a copy of it.
I haven't got a copy, but I'll pull it. It's really just a
I don't
matter
think
of
there's
getting
any
it signed. There was no issue with it when I
Okay.
presented it to Jeff. But the town, everyone has been invoiced. Warren County, that contract just got signed, and so they've been invoiced for the first 3 months of the year. That's what you're seeing, 105. City of Glens Falls is the first quarter. LDC is 1 month. We kind of pay ourselves, so that one's very up to date. And Lehigh, that's their membership. Accounts payable, a couple of these are placeholders. So B&A Associates, that's for the Tech Meadows graphics. That's coming out of the ARPA funds. The audit, we just got the invoice today. It's actually $15,000. And B&A
Is
Communications.
that different than what you budgeted?
I budgeted 12.5, and I guess there was an additional cost for an investment report.
Yeah, she noted that.
And the BN Communications,
Did the audit get filed?
Yes.
BN Communications is just a placeholder. I'm not sure if it's gonna be that much, but I just wanted to keep a placeholder there.
And what's up with CDPHP
What's up with CDP? The
in the payable
credit,
summary?
I had a change in marital debts. So that's a refund for
Okay, for 2 months.
Yeah.
Okay.
The prepaids is the health insurance and Houston. So this year I have Houston parsed out over the months. And rent because of the way that we did it with the audit. Now it's every single month it's prepaid.
Good.
Year-to-date income, the only thing that's really hurting us is we're a little bit behind on membership. I think we're continuing to sort of.
Confused by that though. How are we 23,000?
Well, actually, we just got 5,000 from.
Depends on when you put the budget.
Yeah, but the whole thing is only 100.
Isn't the income is down 23,000, not just membership, right? No, membership's down 23, right?
Because I budgeted a large amount for the month of March because it's the last month that I didn't budget.
No, but we're not underwriting by 23,000. We're not. The report that I get from Trish suggests that we're within $10,000. So I
So
wonder
this
if
is just the month of
this
March.
must be the in-kind stuff somehow.
There, kind stuff, isn't it? I'll have to look at.
We're 24,000 year-to-date budget, and we're 23 in this one month. So that budget of 30 was a big budget.
Well, so as per the membership policy, we can charge a full rate of membership for the first 3 months of the year, and then past that, you have to prorate the membership. So I budgeted everything in the first 3 months.
But, yeah,
Well, I'd still have to run that down.
I'll look into it. There might be some pledges that Trish knows about that I have.
That may be what's happening.
Well, so I know for example.
yeah, wait, I had said ours was gonna be
That was
4-1.
not, that wasn't entered as.
Yeah, because this is March.
All right, so that may be.
That's really it. Over the year, we're gonna have reduction in personnel expenses, and that kind of nets out half of the membership gap. Does anybody have any questions?
If there are no questions, I would ask for a motion to approve March 25 financials.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? If none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Abstain, or excuse me, nay, abstain, motion carries. We're moving on to review the investment options. I would leave that with,
Oh, that was really just that that was about moving some money to another thing.
okay, so this is, the conversation is, if you have a time frame to accomplish that, or you'll,
Yeah, well, so on Thursday, we're going to have the members of the banking review committee here, and so I'll be talking in person with, I don't know.
Great.
I reached out to them, but I didn't get back.
Yeah, the process for opening an account, we'll have to get signature cards and all
I
that.
know.
It takes a bit of time. But we first just want to explain to them what we're
what you're
doing.
trying to achieve. I'll move on to the discussion of the proposed lease for Queensbury Business Park.
So we talked about this just a little bit before you got here. John fields potential proposals for the properties that we either manage or own quite regularly. And in the first part of when I had this job after Ed passed away, we used to get a solar proposal pretty much every month, where solar developers saw, 20 acres and wanted to go develop it. But whenever we ran the numbers, we never really brought any of those forward because we didn't think that that was a productive use of the property.
No job.
Yeah, there was no jobs and the economics on it were not strong
Not
enough
favored,
to tie up that property. Since that time, the county has developed, they put 40 acres of the airport under solar. And it was a long process that they went through to RFP and get approval to do that, but that's underway now. Since that got approved, the next wave that we got were battery storage. And I was explaining this to Judy before you got here, but oftentimes you see battery storage follow solar development. In this particular case, there is a major switch that Grid put in when the original park was developed, thinking that it would become a place of growth for manufacturing for medical device more than 20 years ago. So what happens is anybody who's looking at the infrastructure sees this big switch, sees a lot of solar and doesn't see any storage and immediately says, we should get in there.
Mhm.
We've probably looked at a handful of these and none of them were particularly attractive. One person or one entity wanted to buy the entire park and put battery storage in the entire park. The one that we brought to you is different. It's from a company called New Leaf, and they have a model that is dramatically different than any other I've seen in the industry. They've modularized this and miniaturized it. They operate,
Miniaturized.
so they only operate on 10,000 square foot lots. So it's designed for dense settings. Two things I like about it. One is there's not a lot of storage going on there. Where there are problems with these storage setups is when there's a lot of lithium in one place and a lot of electricity going in and out. In this particular case, you could almost think of this as like a microgrid storage.
Mhm.
The second part I like about it is they were willing to subdivide a lot that we wouldn't be able to probably sell any other way,
Yeah, I see that.
and take the 10,000 square feet that probably will never turn into productive real estate for us. So I kind of think there's no risk in this. That's why we're bringing it to you. Now, we're not bringing it to you for approval yet, but this is the first one that I thought is promising enough that we should apprise you of it while we continue to do the due diligence around both the business case and the company. They are ready to present information, particularly about their safety record and the things that they do to try to prevent any kind of environmental or safety problem. And they're very aggressive. In fact, Judy, they did want to engage the city on Tech Meadows as well. And we apprised both the mayor and Jeff of that, but I think they already had a plan with the solar developer that they are working with on the landfill.
No.
So just consider this a draft for you to take a look at. I expect you'll have questions about it. John and I have been knee deep in this for a couple of years, so we kind of understand how these work, but take a look at it. And John not only provided information about the proposal, but also gave you guys a little bit about the company and the industry.
So doing something like this, does it preclude us from doing does it cut us out from doing anything else?
The only thing it precludes us from is doing another storage deal. These guys essentially lock up that switch.
They lock up that switch. Is it big enough to lock up that switch?
Well, they're betting that if there was more demand, they would then propose to put more of their units on it. But essentially what happens in this world is they go and file with the Public Utilities Commission that essentially says, we have an active contract. We are the provider associated with this switch. So it's like they pee on the pole, it's theirs.
Well said.
And then they may or may not see growth opportunities, and we may be the place they would put it, or they may, if we develop the rest of our property, then they might have to go look across the street or something.
This letter of intent is dated back to November, but it's still effective.
They'll just keep.
Yeah, it was revised, and that should, we don't think it would change that, because this has been revised like just up to the last month.
I mean, they spend a lot of time trying to tell us that, we have to decide on this really fast.
Yeah.
That's not how we operate. So,
We had Bob Ryan look at it too, this very original one.
and he actually
He gave
suggested
us
some
suggestions
changes.
to go back to him.
So there's a different one than this then, right?
Well,
You'll just keep us apprised.
the original one that they gave us, we sent to Bob, and Bob suggested a couple of things, including increasing the money that we would get during the construction phase, which they've agreed to.
Mhm.
The most important thing here is I see this as an almost no-risk way of mitigating some of the loss of the clean dairy funds. The long term would be $35,000 a year, and it increases by 2% a year. It's a 25-year agreement. It has a potential for extensions beyond that. So it's a long-term annuity stream for a piece of property that we probably wouldn't be able to do anything with.
For that part of it.
It butts up against.
And who gets that 35,000 revenue?
We own the property.
EDC.
And this is what the energy storage would look like. There'd be facility, that's their website. It'd be
Yes,
some type
so
of
they
storage
have,
bins.
they have essentially a containerized version of this.
Got it, okay.
Yeah.
And then they build a perimeter around that
Mm-hmm.
that acts as both a containment and kind of like just a way of delineating that that's their space.
Kind of like a berm.
Honestly, it looks like somebody dropped a couple of construction trailers in and put like a half wall around it. That's what it looks like.
Does they have a facility nearby that we could go look at?
It's probably one within an hour or two.
There's one that they're developing now over in Massachusetts. They have them a lot. There's,
Something that's already developed that we could go see.
yeah, they do, they did something.
What is this right here?
So
And this is our
this
site.
is-
This is
You're
the
asking
site.
what's
Who
in
are our
there?
neighbors?
Yeah, what is that?
John,
Yes.
what's in that lot now?
What's in the lot and who are our neighbors?
This is the substation right there.
This
So
is
literally,
Oh, that's the whole switch.
yeah, but below that
This is-
is,
You couldn't be more proximate to the switch.
Yeah, really.
there's a pump station, just in a little, you can't see it here, but there's a pump station down here. So it's kind of all in that same area.
You could think of this as the utilities for the park.
What's the closest human?
So this is the road that the
There's
airport's
a
on.
house
Yeah.
There's a house here.
There's a house
On the
there.
north side of the switch.
Right.
Okay.
there.
Got it.
Yeah,
And
a
then
couple houses.
we own the front lots of this and the county owns the back lots of this. The cannabis operation, which has bought a
Yeah.
lot and is developing, is at the back end.
We
Of this?
told them yet about this?
Nope, the armory is here.
Okay,
And
now I
all
get
of
it.
that will come when they enter into the planning phase. We're never going to tell anybody ahead of that because that's their
Yeah.
call.
Of course.
But,
The zoning allows for it, because it's an industrial zone.
so what we wanted to do is get this in front of you and see what questions you might have and what you might want to go through in terms of making a formal decision. We're already engaged in what I would consider to be real due diligence with them. We've done a legal review.
What does our insurance company say?
We haven't talked to them yet.
I would ask them because of the
Point.
theory of risk-oriented products. And then of course, I asked you, does this cut us off for any other future, but we explained that. But I'd say insurance company for sure. I mean, you've done, you always vet businesses, so.
I'd go talk to John Strong.
Yeah.
Well, I get to
Definitely.
meet with them every week, so we'll have that.
Excellent, so glad to
Does
hear
this,
that.
does this create any risk, so we would need capabilities from, for example, the fire department? Are they gonna need different kinds of
There's special
materials
training programs.
to mitigate
Yeah.
problems here?
Typically what happens is when they enter into the planning process, they lay out their approach to that, and then the town comes back with their questions about how they want to either adjust that or understand that.
But if they've been going through this in other communities, I would pull up the records from those other communities
Yeah.
of what they asked, what they went through, so that if John is asking us that in advance, that we have some of that for you.
Yep, no, good
Yeah, it's
point.
really,
Good
it's
point.
reasonable to have,
Yeah.
to keep them updated
Here's
that
the
way.
process that they've gone through elsewhere.
Here's the risks. You always want to know
Yeah.
risks and how you're going to mitigate.
And they have an extensive track record, so
That's
that's,
great.
they're not like a startup.
Congratulations.
So in addition to that, we also provided to you our, I don't know if you remember this, Kathy, but when Mitch was in the role, he asked us to re-look at our property acquisition and disposition policies. And we kind of,
So we don't have an acquisition policy, so that is brand new.
but he asked us to
Yeah,
draft.
so we'd be ready in
Right,
case.
And so we pulled these back out because we probably need to put these in place if we're gonna actually execute a land transaction.
Yep.
So we're.
Well, this is not a disposition, this is an acquisition.
No, this is, we're selling a piece of property.
We will be actually leasing it with the disposition.
That's the disposition that
Oh, I did
currently
not-
exists, and the acquisition is being proposed.
So we're not buying anything right now, so that's less important,
Yeah.
but the disposition is more important.
Yeah, and we want you,
I did not
we
read that, I
wanted just
read
to
this.
bring this back in front of you so that you're familiar with
I
it.
didn't read
And if
the
there's
acquisition.
anything we wanna change in it,
But it's
we
less
would wanna
important.
do that
We're not
before we
buying
approve this deal.
So there's the acquisition one here and there's the disposition one here. So you want us to look at-
The disposition is proposed, correct?
No, other way
Maybe
around.
other way around.
Disposition currently
Acquisition.
exists, the acquisition
Yeah,
is the one.
and this is 2013
Right.
on this.
But we do have,
nothing
It
since-
matches, I mean, I wanted you to review it and let me know your thoughts on whether you wanna maybe eliminate, like simplify it, but this is the same policy that other EDCs are operating with as well. And once I
Which
have
one? The
the
acquisition,
the disposition.
disposition?
Yeah, so the one that has a number, like it actually has a policy number. So that means that it was reviewed this year by the, it was likely reviewed by the board this year, and it is up to, it's been reaffirmed at our annual meeting.
Even though it says 2013 on it,
well, that's,
that's just
But that's when it was
Original.
originally, yeah.
So does this go by the lawyer first before we look at it?
we did actually ask for his input, and he suggested that we dramatically shrink it down,
Simplify it.
or at least provided an option for us to have a much more simplified version.
Which one, the acquisition or the?
Disposition. Because I'm
No,
not,
this says draft, but it isn't a draft, we
Oh, I'm
approved it.
Yeah, why does it-
Yeah.
It should not say draft.
Okay.
That's it.
this one does.
Oh.
This is the disposition, this is
one
the
pager-
acquisition.
yeah, I know, it's confusing. So the one pager that
Yeah.
doesn't have a number on it, that's the one that we need to
Create.
create. Yeah.
But this is the one he said cut back
Yes.
on disposition.
And
I
I
mean,
do
I-
apologize, it should
I
not
can
have the
give
word
you-
strike on it.
I don't feel comfortable giving you obviously legal advice or something, but I can certainly suggest things. It
So-
really comes down to them and the protection of us in the relationship.
So if we were to dramatically decrease it, we would be following legal guidance, but also out ahead of everybody else. As far as I can tell, everybody else is using the policy that's more than 10 years old and is whatever it is, 8 pages long,
Yeah.
whatever.
Boilerplate.
So I'm not sure where I stand on this.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'll think about it in that regard. I didn't consider it.
I did not look at the disposition one, but I will.
Yeah.
And get back to you. On the acquisition one, I did look at it. Since we're not acquiring a piece of property right now, I would put this aside and work on this. I think it needs work.
Okay.
Because if you're acquiring a piece of property, I would recommend that you have language in there that talks about what actions you're gonna take, both in terms of legal, environmental.
Risk orientation again.
Yeah, you should be doing an environmental route, maybe at least a phase 1 report. You should be doing a title search. Those types of things should be in here. And this is a little confusing because it's both, talks about acquisition and then it switches over and talks about leasing or subleasing property. I think leasing and subleasing should be separate from acquisition, 2 different things.
Okay.
So I would,
No focus on.
or at least make leasing and subleasing a subcategory and not have it listed under acquisition. Because leasing and subleasing is not an acquisition.
So,
But I think this is not important right now. This is
so we're gonna
what's
table
important.
that, even with your initial input. We will begin to take some of what you said into consideration, but we will look for any thoughts or modifications that we want to take to our disposition policy
Okay.
before we would enact anything on the proposal that I presented to you.
Got
It's okay if we keep it, but we want to be affirmative in the fact that this is how we want to do it.
So this policy's been in place for several years and we just need to take a look at it and possibly directly relate it to this. And even be, so.
Would you have a time frame you want back?
Well, I'd like to do it in the next, between now and our next cycle.
Okay.
What's this like?
Maybe in a couple of days.
Okay.
Our next meeting is the 30th.
Of April?
Yeah, and then after that is.
You had your lawyer already look at this and they've already got some suggestions, some changes to downsize
That was the acquisition.
all down.
So I do have a longer version of this with due diligence, and I will say that an earlier iteration was presented to governance, and the request was to make it shorter.
Short. It is pretty short.
Was to,
Yeah, no,
was
it's
to,
really
re-
doesn't-
was to simplify it.
No, That's how we got to the one that you have.
Yeah, so I have one that is 2 pages,
Okay.
so.
It's not an issue right now, but this real property disposition is if there's language in here that says that considers leasing or subleasing the property as part of disposition. It isn't really a disposition unless
Long-term leasing.
long-term is long, transfer, this is transfer, we're not transferring it, we're not selling it. I'm just quickly, is there something in here
So let
about
me just tell you,
leasing?
the only thing that's occurred to me when I read it is that in this proposal, we may want to consider whether or not we want to create options for us in any contract, because we could then use our policy as a negotiating pattern to break from their approach where essentially you lock yourself down for 25 years with no outs. Now, this particular technology is very portable, so that they're not putting in a fixed construction site that would be very expensive for us to remove. It's basically a wall, like a cinder block wall that goes around a very small area and containers. So if we wanted to create options where, say, every 5 years it has to be reapproved, then we could put that in our policy and then use our policy as a basis of negotiation.
And they don't wanna buy it, they won't buy it.
That's not their model.
You know, tie up.
They want no balance sheet.
I mean, the big issue is gonna be for us is there gonna be contamination or are you creating a brownfield that can never be sold or used for any other reason? And, I don't know enough about what it is that they're storing and how they're storing, and are they gonna be protecting the soil? And what are they doing to,
Well, I mean, this is basically the battery that's in your laptop, just on a much larger scale. We're kind of pregnant already here. The switches on that site, National Grid's transformers are far more toxic than lithium. So that we're already in that position where if there was a catastrophic problem with that site, we would probably have some, environmental issues there. I think the question is whether or not we feel
Do some
comfortable.
stations ever got transformed?
But yeah,
When
if you have a big enough storm.
Swirls in them.
That's California, I don't know.
Yikes.
Yeah, it's a risk for, I guess.
So we will look at the disposition and get back.
and I don't see that the disposition talks about leasing or
Leasing.
subleasing, so I'm not even sure it's applicable, but, I would wanna know more about what steps they're gonna take to protect the land from both fire and contamination.
So I think they, we'll go through this, but the information they presented to us so far is essentially that wall creates a zone where they put in some kind of barrier that underlies all of that. And you can almost think of it as the way that like chemicals are contained on a industrial site. So you have a perimeter that keeps it from escaping, and then you have something that's embedded in the soil that would act as a containment unit if it got in the soil.
Any of the
But
old
we'll ask
storage
them to go
places
through
have the
those
same thing.
details.
And
on
if-
it.
They've said that they volunteered to be, you come make a presentation about how they mitigate this.
The issue is whether it catches on fire, because none of this is liquid unless the whole place.
Unless
starts.
liquefied, right?
Yeah.
And if you could find out the location of where they're both building now
Sure.
and where they built before,
I think
Yeah.
that's,
There's one in Wendell,
there
Wendell,
is
Mass.
some of
There's
that
a couple
information
things
in
in
here,
there.
yeah.
okay,
But
There's-
look
there's
into
always-
their planning board and
and
notes and
see
see.
what is online and what's going on in that community.
Yep.
And I think it's
It's a process
worth a
they
site
follow.
visit.
It's in Bali, let's go.
So
Bali.
Indonesia, I'm kidding.
I think that's everything that we
For it. Bali, you'll take
Yeah.
Go with you guys.
There's no other business, is there an executive
pictures.
session needed?
Take
Yeah,
pictures,
it's a-
pictures.
If
and
there is
minutes.
not, the next meeting is the Board of Directors, April 30th at 8, and the next audit of finance is May 13th at 4. And if there's nothing further, I ask for a motion to adjourn.
So,
Second,
No discussion, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
you let me know when that's.
Opposed, abstained, motion carries. And you're gonna-
take this time.